You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. My guest is Kate O'Byrne, Washington editor of National Review, and she is author of Women Who Make the World Worse, and how the radical feminist assault is ruining our schools, families, military, and sports. And let's go down each of those, Kate, and then I'm going to take calls from you folks around the country. 1-8-PRAGER-776, and if you disagree or you think it's overstated, we particularly want to hear from you. And we'll begin with schools. How is it ruining our schools?
This is also makes the point about follow the money, Dennis. Feminist theorists, chiefly Carol Gilligan at Harvard University, came up with the notion and started peddling it in the 80s that our daughters were being silenced. People might remember this got a lot of attention in the mainstream media. Mm-hmm. She was named one of the best thinkers, most influential people in America by Time magazine. The notion was that our daughters faced this crippling sex bias. They were losing their voices. As a young girl reached ages 11, 12, or 13, it was almost like the Bermuda Triangle. She lost herself.
Right.
There was no evidence to support this notion, but based on their phony studies, they got Congress and intimidated Congress to pass the Gender Equity in Education Act in the early 90s. It comes with tens of millions of dollars to study this phony crisis and to address the debilitating atmosphere in schools with respect to girls. Fast forward a dozen years, and of course Newsweek cover story this week is the boy crisis. And sure enough, on every educational measurement, girls are outperforming boys in schools. Boys more apt to drop out of school, be left behind, be in special ed. Girls are much better readers than boys. On average, read year and a half at a grade level, a year and a half higher. Now, I hasten to say the remedy here is not that our boys are now a victim class. Our remedy is to kick gender politics out of the schools. I quote these women. They are about nothing less, given their fundamental understanding that sex roles are determined by society and are learned. They're determined in our schools to have boys unlearn their sex role. The methodology now in many schools, owing to this feminist influence, is far more girl-friendly, cooperative learning, no competition.
It's feelings-based. How do you feel?
Yes.
You should see the assignments, I'm sure you have, that kids in schools are given. Tell us your feelings about. Boys don't want to do that. They want to tell you, this is what King Arthur did.
Exactly.
Not what I feel.
I quote an NYU professor who's looked at what the common literature now, a reading list in schools. He calls the genre pushed owing to this agenda, paid for by federal tax dollars. He calls the genre the Wonder Woman and the Wimp stories. There aren't any male heroes. All the heroes are female. Textbooks you're not allowed to have. They're busy scrubbing sex stereotypes out of textbooks. No girls are mothers. They're never seen doing anything inside the home. California, which as you know has so much to do with what our textbooks look like because they're such a huge purchaser, they passed a regulation. All textbooks have to have an equal representation of men and women when it comes to their contributions to history and science and...
Oh, my God. When was that passed?
Years ago.
An equal representation. It's like saying there should be an equal representation of men and women in football.
Dennis, it's a complete miseducation of our children. And as I said, we're seeing how unfriendly. A lot of parents instinctively sort of see this in schools, might not realize who's played such a large part in it. I know I had the happy option with my sons of a local all-boys school. Many people don't have that option. What our mothers used to call ants in the pants. The typical condition of a 9-year-old little boy is not a pathology that has to be treated. It's boyhood.
Yep, but it's regarded as a pathology. Hugh in Irvine, California, Kate O'Byrne and Dennis Prager. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I tell you, you guys are so right. I'm a year away from getting my teaching credential, and you have to be a company man to get good grades in this classroom. Last night, I was in my methods course for language arts, and she is literally teaching us like we're seals by throwing us candy when we get the answer right, modeling what we're supposed to be doing in the classroom when we're out there. Basically, I guess, nurturing your students, not creating an atmosphere of competition or competitiveness is the way to go. And it's
do they actually use the word nurture?
Yeah, they've used the nurture once or twice.
But that's the gist of it.
Basically, I tell you what, I was an actor, and I kind of dropped out of that line of work and art to pursue this. And this is like the role of my life, just playing the village idiot and nodding my head as if I don't know what's going on here, because that's the only way to really, make
get ahead.
Happy.
Get ahead in your profession. Kate?
I'm delighted somebody such as Hugh is in the course, because if he's able to survive it by going along with the prevailing attitudes, hopefully he'll wind up in a classroom someday, and then we'll be free to run it in a way that doesn't buy into the gender agenda. That doesn't help our daughters either. But see, even despite all the evidence now about the extreme well-being of girls in schools, the feminists can't admit that. It would cut off all that money.
That's a good point. People don't realize that. They say that there's a lot of money to be made on the right, but they don't realize the activism money that is on the left often dwarfs it. It's always lost. But I'm not going to go off on a tangent there. Let's go to Dallas and Devin in. Let's see here. Okay, Devin in Dallas. Dennis Prager and Kate O'Byrne. Hi, Devin.
Hi, my question is in regards to the title of her book. Where would the world be if extreme feminists hadn't blazed a trail to allow women to contribute to our economy, like the CEO of Little Caesars, for instance, is a woman, I was told, or the owner of the company. Where would they be if it hadn't been for these crazy feminists blazing the trail, Joan of Arc, Mary Curie, making huge impacts to our society? So I just think that it's a bit generalization to say they make the world a worse place. They blow a lot of money perhaps on analysis impacts of the salary disparity, but I just think it's a really strong title to say that it makes the world a worse place.
Okay, Kate.
I love that question. Thank you. Well, of course, the title talks about the specific woman I name in this book, the women who specifically make the world worse. But it's a terrific question, and I get it from feminists all the time. I couldn't even write this book. I could never have gone to law school. I would be home washing pots and pans, but for feminists. Two answers. We're all, of course, the product of our own individual experiences, me no less than the feminists themselves. Many of them, I might add, have had very negative experiences with the men in their lives. I am the product of just 3 sisters, 4 girls, all girls high school, all women's college. In my own case, I learned more about self-worth, ambition, and opportunity from my very conventional parents and from Catholic nuns than I ever learned from Betty Friedan in my own case.
All right, well, I want you to continue with that answer. We'll be back in a moment. Kate O'Byrne. I'm Dennis Prager, 1-8.